civic participation, and healthy lifestyle. The new education policy, a historic and much needed new age reform, has the potential to leverage India's favorable demographics by prioritizing human capital. The goal to increase public investment in education sector to 6% of GDP must be pursued vigorously. And here, I think there is an important role for a public-private partnership also, which I would believe and which I would like to sincerely believe, and which has been proved through empirical evidence that education facilities created through public-private partnerships can sort of generate quality education, can impart quality education at affordable costs while maintaining the financial viability of private investment. Indian banks and financial system would need to respond proactively to opportunities arising from the new education policy for new financing. Besides improving access to education, focus on quality of education is also very important. And, I have prepared a text of my speech. I'm not reading out the entire speech. It will be uploaded in the RBI website immediately after this session is over. So anyone interested can please have a look at the speech will be uploaded, but I will just touch upon some of the points and then conclude and leave sufficient time for discussion. Health, similarly, is another vital component of human capital, and good health increases life expectancy and productive working years. In high-income countries, the per capita health expenditure is naturally very high compared to countries like emerging economies like India. I have the figures here. I'm just skipping that. Now, COVID has brought to the fore the importance of easy access to health services to contain mortality rate, given significant interstate and intrastate differences in health care infrastructure. And while laudable crisis time response to scale up health infrastructure has helped in dealing with the health emergency, I'm referring to India, a more comprehensive approach similar to the new education policy for health sector may also be warranted, which must also cover deeper penetration of insurance and also preventive care. Greater attention is required to improve the healthcare ecosystem by ensuring creation of new medical colleges, higher education, research institutes in the area of medical science, higher number of postgraduate seats, and setting up new colleges for paramedics and nursing. Let me now touch upon the second point, which deals with productivity growth. Now, by any reckoning, COVID-19 will leave long-lasting scars on the productivity levels of countries around the world. According to a very recent World Bank assessment, which was done in 2020 in the context of the pandemic, COVID-19 could entail adverse effects on productivity because of dislocation of labor, disruption of value chains, and decline in innovations. During earlier episodes of epidemics in the past, like the SARS, the MERS, the Ebola, and Zika, productivity is estimated to have declined by 4% over 3 years. The COVID impact on productivity could be expected to be much larger. And this is a worldwide survey which the World Bank assessment which the World Bank has undertaken. Now, CLEMS, which stands for Capital, Labor, Energy, Materials, and Services, a database hosted by the Reserve Bank, shows that India's economy experienced an overall productivity growth of 0.9% per annum on an average over a period 1980-81 to 2017-18. In the immediate post-global financial crisis period, that is from 2008-9 to 12-13, there was, however, a decline in productivity by 0.3% annually, while the period thereafter, up to 2017-18, recorded annual productivity growth of 2.4%. The contribution of productivity growth to overall GDP growth of the Indian economy over the period 80-81 to 2017-18 was about 15%. More recently, during 2013-14 to 17-18, its contribution, that is contribution of productivity increased significantly to about 34%. The share of patents applied and granted to India in the total patents granted globally has been rising over the years, and this is another area I think which also requires attention. Stepping up R&D investment in other areas would require more efforts by the private sector, with the government focusing on creating an enabling environment. You see, most of the advanced economies and other countries, a lot of investment in R&D takes place by the private sector. In India, so far, it has been primarily public sector driven. There is investment. I mean, there are efforts being undertaken by the private sector, no denying. But this is, I think, one area where there are opportunities for the private sector. And I would like to utilize this opportunity to sort of appeal and to sort of mention to you for your consideration that I think private sector also needs to focus on research and development. Now, the innovation hub you have mentioned, Reserve Bank has launched it. We are not going into it. The India Innovation Index released by the Niti Aayog last year has been widely accepted, and I think that can act as a platform for more emphasis and more focus on innovation. The third point I wanted to touch upon is with regard to global value chains. Now, the impediments to global value chains have been identified in the post GFC, that is the post global financial crisis, and they are more. I'm talking about the global scenario. Globally, the key impediments to exports after the GFC global financial crisis, they include generalized increase in protectionism by trading partners, weak global conditions. Then you have automation and several other factors coming in. Notwithstanding these impediments and also the significant decline in trade intensity of world GDP growth in the post-GFC period, opportunities for expanding exports arising from vastly altered global landscape for trade, where more than two-thirds of world trade occurs through global value chains. Now, this is very important. Two-thirds of the world trade occurs through global value chains. And today, India, we are on the threshold of a big opportunity to break into the global value chain. And I think this is one area where government, all authorities concerned, and more particularly private sector, private industry, private business need to work together. It is an opportunity available for Indian business to try and to enter into the new opportunities, to capitalize the new opportunities which the current crisis has opened up, for new players to break into to become a part of the global value chain. India's participation in the global value chain is quite low and it can be improved. I'm not going into that any further. Now, among the sunrise sectors that offer potential for higher exports in the post-COVID period are, of course, obviously drugs and pharmaceuticals. And it's very heartening to note that many of our Indian companies are, they have sort of become global suppliers of various kinds of medicines and drugs. And this is an area where India has certain competitive advantages and that needs to be capitalized. A sharp policy focus on other global value chain intensive network products, including equipment for IT hardware, electronic appliances, electronics and telecommunications and automobiles would also provide the cutting edge to India's export strategy with considerable scope for higher value additions. Domestic policies need to focus on right mix of local and foreign content in exports while aiming to enhance participation in GVCs. It is also important to learn from global experience and nurture those trade agreements that go beyond traditional market access issues. Provisions relating to investment, competition, intellectual property rights, protection have a larger positive impact on global value chains, GVC trade, and need to be assiduously cultivated and integrated into the Indian ecosystem. Now, so therefore, I have touched upon three of these aspects. The other two aspects which I have listed out are tourism as an engine for growth. Now, tourism has been one of the sectors in the economy most severely impacted by COVID-19. At the same time, this is also a sector where pent-up demand could drive a V-shaped recovery when the situation normalizes. India, as you know, has tremendous potential in tourism, and the challenge, nevertheless, is to scale up our tourism market and enhance its contribution to economic development. The employment elasticity of tourism sector is very high, and it needs to be capitalized. I'm happy to note that a multi-pronged approach, a policy approach, has been taken up by the government, and this is one area where again the private sector has an important role. The fifth and the last point which I would like to mention, and the details are there in the speech, so you could perhaps have a look at it, and others also who are part of this webinar may please have a look at it in the RBI website, because I have given a lot of points and a lot of data and other things which may be of interest. Now, food processing also, food processing for surplus management is also very, very important. And this is, so far as India is concerned, this is in fact a sunrise industry. Globally, its importance in consumer basket has increased over time, led by rising per capita incomes, urbanization, and change in consumer perceptions regarding quality and safety. Despite being one of the largest producers of several agricultural commodities in the world, India ranks fairly low in the global food processing value chain. There is therefore a need to move up in the value chain. And India can certainly move up in the global agricultural value chain by increasing its share of processed food exports, for which quality standards will be critical factor. This is again an area which now I have highlighted these 5 areas, and these 5 areas should be read in conjunction with the 5 areas which I had earlier mentioned to the other apex industry body, the CII. So there are totally 10 points which I have highlighted, and I would like to believe that these are the areas where there are opportunities for private sector, and these opportunities need to be capitalized. I have highlighted 5 critical areas, as I have said, which can determine the shape of our post-COVID trend. While dealing with immediate crisis management challenges, we need to strategically prepare for our combined overriding goal, the pursuit of strong and sustainable growth. The private business sector has a critical role in each of the 5 areas I covered today. The enabling policy environment would evolve around the initiatives taken by India's businesses to seize these opportunities and actualize the potential of Indian economy as a rising economic power of the 21st century. COVID-19 has changed our lives, and it is increasingly clear that life will never be the same again. We should look upon these fundamental changes as opportunities rather than threats, converting them into game-changing new vistas of progress. I do sincerely believe that together as a nation, we can certainly do this and achieve our objectives. Let me conclude on this optimistic note. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Comprehensive, optimistic, and definitely what we were looking to hear. Since time is short, we'll jump directly into the questions, sir. But we have noted all your points. We'll go to the website, take the speech, and also add it into our website and disseminate it to our members. So may I make the first comment that I appreciate the inclusion of health into one of your focus and priority areas, being from that sector myself, and request for an inclusion into the guidelines. The Kamath committee did not specifically call out health, would request for that special focus on that one, especially because small nursing homes, etc., have had significant problems. With this, sir, I'll jump directly into questions. We're joined by many members of many of our past presidents, many seniors, chairs of many sectors.